What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Peter Steele here, and we are back with episode 164 of the video game therapy series. Yeah, for better or worse, I wouldn't say a fixation of mine, an interest of mine that takes up a lot of my, I suppose, free thinking time, just time I'm just thinking about whatever, is technology. And it's hard to ignore the people that orchestrate and control technologies. Um, Meaning that as much as the technology itself is interesting to me, it's often all too relevant, unfortunately, who it is that is uh, creating and perpetrating such technologies that is equally relevant to the conversation. Again, as unfortunate as it is. But the other day, I guess yesterday, really, I was thinking about Peter Thiel as the as one of them, and I think as gay guys go, it's probably like the scariest possible archetype, in my view, because he just looks so straight. He doesn't sound. I mean, not to say you have to sound gay to be gay, but there's a certain gay like gaydar thing, but my gaydar doesn't go off at all looking at Peter Thiel. Like to me, he presents almost military, and as entrenched as he is in intelligence affairs, I just wonder how much of his persona and his just entire personhood is, I'll use the word legitimate here, but just isn't a front for something. Um, Beyond that, like beyond the fact that he's a scariest kind of gay guy because he's extremely straight looking, but I am very interested on or in what motivates these people. Like, why is it that they do what they do? And I think this, at first is a very like duh, like stupid answer. It's like, well, they obviously just want money, and that's like a very, I think that's in my view, that's kind of a low IQ answer. It's just like they just want money. Like, I think these people, once they've accrued, that amount of wealth, they kind of realize that money, like when normal people get money, a lot of money, that when they think of a lot of money, they just think of like all the shit that they could buy with it. They think of like islands and planes, and they could hire a private chef. Like that's kind of what comes to mind when you think of money, and like a luxurious lifestyle, and safety against economic downturns, or whatever. But I think when you get to that level of wealth, you kind of maybe you realize, or you start to see that money itself isn't. You kind of realize very obviously that money isn't real, and the money itself won't save you from the real threats. I think the real interest behind having that much money isn't the money itself, but obviously what that money gives you, like the power and the I won't say connections, but just the affordances that having that much money, it's really influence is what that money gives you. It's not really that it gives you, like, sure, it gives you a bunker in case things go south. And even if, even if Palantir lost, 98% of its, even if his, on paper, 95% plus of his, wealth was erased, that wouldn't really matter. I think people like that know that. And they also probably don't even care. Um, but what does interest me is just thinking about why they would do some things. And it's like one thing to have, like, to want power and want money to exert that influence, to have power. But then, like, why do you want power? Like, that's kind of the next question. And I think it boils down to, in my view, that uh, these people are, and I say these people, and I do mean these people in a derogatory sense. So I'm including others that might have different skews. The Zuckerbergs, the Musks, the Bezoses, whatever. They all probably have their own inclinations, but they're all captured. I'll say ideologically captured, but they all have their own philosophy on things and philosophy on the world. And part of what uh, their, I desire, I suppose, or what their interest is I think either like growing or implementing their perspective onto others. And I think they view money and influence as a vehicle to influence people and influence the world. And I think it's brash to think that like they themselves think that they're evil. Like I guarantee you if you asked Bezos or Peter Thiel or even the idiot that does the flock cameras or whatever, like do you think you're evil? Like everyone kind of sees you, you look like a Bond villain and you act like a Bond villain and you say things that Bond villains would say. Like are you playing a character? Like why are you doing this? Like do you actually think, and I think these people genuinely feel that they are doing good in the world, even if they can. I realize that you have to be an idiot to think that. Like, yes, but I think even they like realize that on the surface, a lot of what they do looks bad. But I think they justify it, to themselves and maybe to their shareholders or to their wife or whatever, in I'll say a philosophically sound way, in a sense that it's not that all of us can see something that they can't. I think they kind of know that they're seen as Bond villains. Like, I don't think Peter Thiel. I mean, maybe they would, but I doubt that Peter Thiel would be shocked if, people were like, people like hate you, right? Like, do you realize that you are probably one of the most hated people on the planet? Like, do you know that? Like, and then even I think they would recognize that. But I think even if they accepted it, like, all right, people hate me, but I think they're misunderstanding me. I think they don't see the future that I could see, if I have my way or whatever. And because I'm trying to view them through less of like this standard, like, oh, Peter Thiel, what an evil monster, and trying to understand like why the fuck would anybody do this? Like, because I think it's stupid to say that they're just after money, because I think they would have had if money was what they wanted, like money for trinkets and for cars and whatever, I think they would have gotten that amount of money long ago. So it's not that like money itself is that much of a motivator for them. And power is one thing, but then again, I ask, power for what? Like, why would they even want power? If power is their motivator, what do they want power for? And I think it's they represent, or they feel strongly in a philosophical direction that drives them towards more influence. And this is kind of where I get stuck, because I don't really understand the philosophy. I think if you go company by company, maybe they each have their own justifications. Like, maybe if you start with like Zuckerberg, for example, his whole mission was like, I want to connect the world or something. And I think in his early days, like, you could say, all right, he was just trying to get laid. Like, all right, that's fair, whatever. And Facebook. And then I think at one point maybe he really did kind of see himself as this, like, as the person that uses the internet to really unite all of humanity into one vision. Like, everyone understands this, equality and democracy. And he didn't really appreciate that, like, people have wildly different viewpoints on all of these things. And I think like everybody just cohabitating nicely and peacefully, everyone being happy all the time and going on Facebook to share pictures. It's like, I think people, he maybe realized, or maybe he doesn't, but that is like kind of a folly's game. It's not a good, that's not how it's not gonna work well doing that. It's like people are not, we're not at a evolutionary stage where we can all be combined into one, proto-human. We all act and feel and do the same things. Because the thinking being like, oh, connecting and more collaboration between different people across the world is better. Where in some cases, like, there are, I think the smarter people would realize this, that there are cultures and people that are, I'll say fundamentally incompatible, but just incompatible, right? They just don't really work with one another. Like, there are religions and cultures that just will not, and cannot see eye to eye on many very fundamental things. And while people can think that the internet can undo all of that, it can't. And you might say, well, this is just like stupid evolutionary programming and dumb history or whatever. But that's still ultimately like what defines people. And as arbitrary as you might think cultures and histories are, they're not arbitrary, and especially not arbitrary to those people. So you can't just like go about trying to dissolve those using technologies and expect, nothing to happen. So I think that, is kind of one, mistaken philosophy. That whole like market capture and everything will be good if we just, kind of connect everybody and, do that. But I still think he kind of believes that in some way. And maybe, part of his, identity crisis or something that he's had, maybe he never had an identity to begin with, because I don't know how much soul searching these people actually do, or they need to. But I still think to some extent he's kind of trying to modify that philosophy, where like we can all go on the Mark's internet together and be good. The people that peddle more like privacy intrusive technologies, I have a more difficult time trying to like understand their philosophy. So these are like the Palantirs and the Flocks. And Facebook too, as an example, is a surveillance engine. It's an ad surveillance engine, right? Their whole business is just peddling ads, and they use I say surveillance, in order to accomplish that goal. But it's harder and harder to justify, whatever the underlying philosophy is for that. Like, why is it that this is supposed to be good? Like, because I genuinely struggle to think that these people know and believe and understand that they are evil. I think they really don't see themselves as that. They see themselves as vectors for good and almost ends justify the means. Like, I know people don't like this, and it might seem that this is an invasion of privacy, but it's actually for the greater good. And maybe they're just like this, they've watched too many Marvel movies and think that, this is kind of the main sacrifices. People have to kind of get over this idea of, autonomy and liberty and whatever. And those are concepts so central and obvious to many of us, including me, that it is difficult to see a world in which like Flock is like, oh, well, we just have to do this. And maybe part of it's also this like, and I've shit on this inevitability argument before, where it's like, well, this is just the direction that technology is going. Like, it has to be this way, and like it might as well be me. I think that is a complete ostrich strategy, where your head is in the sand, buried, and you've hired people to just continually pour sand, under your neck, because there's just no way that nothing is inevitable. Like, I think humans bring things into existence. There is no such thing as inevitability. And using like, China or something as some excuse, like, well, they're going to do it, it's inevitable. It doesn't mean that, just because somebody else is doing something wrong, you then have to do something wrong preemptively, because it's better if you did something wrong than if they did something wrong. And it's like, well, no, actually, at that point, does the motivation matter? Like, if you're going to kill somebody, like, well, they were going to kill somebody else first. And it's like, if nobody knows the better, and that wasn't actually true, then you just killed, and you're not any better than them, because you have become the very thing that you tried to avoid. It's almost kind of reminds me a little bit of that the movie Minority Report, where it's like the whole pre-crime division, where it's like, in order to stop him from doing the crime that he was supposedly going to do, he then commits the atrocious crime, which is, again, kind of, that to me very clearly embodies this like inevitability argument. It's like, well, no, actually, you are doing the bad thing that you wanted to avoid by doing it, thinking that it was going to happen anyway. It's like, you caused that. It wasn't going to happen, but you actually thinking it was going to happen no matter what, ended up making it happen. Which I think is I don't know, I think is part of the philosophical issue that, or I'll say inconsistency that a lot of these people have is, and then the other kind of the overarching problem with a lot of these people is they're just not, they're either like, they either know they're evil and they want to be evil, and they're like just relish in that, and they kind of think it's, I even thought that like maybe like Peter Thiel has like a kink where he knows, like, even maybe it's like even a sexual kink, like he like just wants to be evil, and he just loves like that idea of being like an evil boss, and just like I don't even know what kind of kink it is. Maybe that's one idea, and then the other idea is that they're morons, and they just haven't thought deeply about any problem. They just can't think deeply about it, and they're morons. So it's like, which, I don't really know which one to believe. I struggle to think that they're stupid, I just don't think that they're stupid. Um, it's possible, in some case it's maybe like a Trump scenario where the people have been surrounded by sycophants to an extent that they kind of lack any amount of self-awareness or honesty because of the environment they've put themselves in. Like if you only hire people that surround and agree with you, it's like you're gonna have a really hard time doing any kind of real soul searching because you've paid everybody to essentially do the opposite, to tell you exactly what you want to hear, which I'm sure is happening to an extent with all these people. So maybe it's a combination of all these things. Maybe it's like, yeah, they probably have weird sexual kinks, whatever. They might be surrounded by people that just won't disagree with them, and they might be, I'll say just a little short-sighted in thinking. And they might fall into some of these traps, like this whole inevitability trap, which I think is one philosophical problem that a lot of these people have, and just haven't either thought about it or just are choosing to ignore the reality of that. This inevitability argument is not a valid argument. And maybe the other thing is just like a morbid curiosity with some of these people, where it's like, it's like people are always warning about the surveillance state, but like, is it really like, it's like, come on, like, is it like, yeah, people are all worried about this, but I mean, come on, that's the stuff from the movies. Like, we're not going to do that. And I think by like thinking that like, is this real? It's like by wondering if it's really possible, they're almost kind of allowing it to happen and like kind of aiding in the creation of it. So, it could also be kind of a morbid curiosity thing. I don't know. There's a few different ways in which I can conceive these people justifying their views. But I just don't think it's helpful or constructive for, kind of this helpless populace, if I can put myself in a category, to just kind of like say, oh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're evil, without really giving them, not the benefit of the doubt, but at least thinking about why they might be doing any of this. And it's like easy and is cheap to just say, well, it's just money. It's like, I don't even think it's money. I think money for these people is so far behind. Like they only look at money as a vehicle for influence. Like I think if these people wanted money to buy trinkets and go to Lakers games, they had that money 20 years ago. It's like what are they really doing with this? Is it really multi-generational wealth? I don't feel like these people care about their kids. It's not like they want their kids to be, these barons of the future. I don't think they care about their kids either. I don't. I think it's, just many different, I'll say incorrect or invalid or very flawed philosophies. And then, kind of maybe like a curiosity in some sense. It's like, well, I can do this, and very few people can do what I'm going to do, and I might as well try to do it and see what happens. Which with most of us would be like, don't do that. It's like you don't care, even if what you're doing is wrong. That doesn't bother you by an extent. Like what if the naysayers are right? What if these people that you consider to be haters, and like, what if they are actually onto something? I don't know. But I do find it constructive to really try to understand the philosophies of some of these people and why they do what they do. And I think it is cheap and not really helpful to just like say money as why they do it, because I just don't see money as why they would do this, or money beyond like the actual value of money itself. Like money for power could be one thing, like that might be why they make short-term decisions to jack up prices or profit, and all the levers that they have at their disposal. Only just for the effective influence, in the short term. And the other kind of way to looking at this is maybe it's just like think about it like like an immature social circle, like in high school, where you have like a couple rich kids and you have like a poor kid, and then like poor kids start making some money selling drugs, and then, it's like people, like you can almost maybe think about it as like the cool kids in high school, and they're all trying to like one up each other. But the difference is, instead of totaling their mom's car or having a party, they are renting an island and raping children. So, I mean, that's also possible, that this is just like a whole big game of who's who in this weird social circles where, we have to maug Larry Ellison somehow. So we going to come to the party. And I mean, I don't know. It's like there's a couple different ways of looking at how these people operate, and I can't say definitively that one makes so much sense over the other. So to me, it's still kind of a mystery, like what really motivates these people. And the most unfortunate answer would be just that they just aren't thoughtful, and they haven't even considered a lot of these implications of what they're doing, or they and I don't think that is necessarily the case. I think these people are smart. They have thought about many things. I think they're just extremely maybe sheltered, sheltered philosophically, or protected, and are extremely flawed in their thinking. And they've been right in their entire lives. They're just kind of they're correct. They win, they win, they win, they win. And if you're on a hot streak, there's really nothing anyone can tell you that is going to change your mind. It's like you're talk to somebody who's just won $10,000 playing blackjack. It's like they're not. It doesn't matter what you tell them, they're going nuts, and they're just like absolutely like they're just in the pocket. There's literally nothing you can do to talk them out of this headspace. They are on a fucking roll, and if you're not in their ear cheering them on, fuck you, because look at all this shit I got. And that's kind of what I get from Elon a little bit. I kind of think his rise to stardom, with no offense how ugly he is and how socially troubled he is. I think he is moderately articulate, and I do think he's smart and he's thoughtful. But I just think he's an example of someone who's just kind of high off of like what his life has become and the things he's been able to do. So it's kind of hard to knock him, off his horse. It's really only like his, maybe even his mother, or like, a close friend or something that could actually like get to him and understand like, what the fuck are you doing with all this? And these people also aren't like, it's not as, a lot of people are motivated by like, oh, I just want to be happy. Like that, I think to a lot of these people is so, they do kind of they have kind of realized like the initial red pill of like, all right, happiness is kind of a fleeting, and not only it's an impossible ideal. Like you can have moments of happiness. You can, you will have moments of happiness kind of no matter what, even if you're, in a jail, like you're going to have moments where it's happy, relatively speaking, because of, the whole hedonic set point thing. So I think these people know that. So it's not that they're after happiness or anything. So then they're kind of looking and searching and scrounging around for other vectors in which they can, kind of feel alive in some sense, or, live life to the fullest in whatever way. But again, the bigger problem being that they are stepping on the heads of everybody else, and potentially ruining the planet in the process, for them to self-actualize, which will never happen. So it's obviously not worth it from anyone else's perspective. But for them, it's like, well, it's self-actualize or die. And if I have to ruin the world, on my way to self-actualization, then so be it. It's like, well, I'm here. I have to do this. It's like, well, what are you doing? Like, why do you think that your life and your self-actualization, or your, bringing these technologies to humanity is so integral to your character that it's worth, potentially all these negative things that's happening. That, or the ostrich argument, where they're just completely clueless of what they're actually doing with a lot of their work. So I don't know. I do just find it interesting to try to understand these people's headspaces, because it's, it's a mystery, but also it's like, I understand them because I'm a human, and humans have this, magical ability to understand other humans. So it's not like I can't conceive of why they might do certain things. But then, most of us have, I'll say the non-sociopathic gene. I don't want to call these people sociopaths because you never really know. Based on their actions, it's hard not to. But, most of us have these kind of like sensible restrictions that is like, okay, well, this just isn't worth it to me. And maybe these people have those turned off. Maybe it is just a bunch of sociopaths running around that are looking for the next big thing. But I don't know. I tend to think, and part of me tends to hope, that these people are more complex and flawed, and in maybe not just a fundamental way, but flawed in a way that is human and understandable. Because I think the only way to really not defeat, but to surpass and overcome evil or whatever you want to call it is first step up by understanding. You have to kind of understand and get into the headspace of why these people would do certain things. And I don't think it's helpful to just say that, oh, money, 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 money. It's like, okay, that's probably part of it, but there's a lot more to these people's lives than just money, and money and power. So, even just power, power, power is one thing, but like power for what? This applies to a much lesser extent to everybody. I'm not, it's not just singling out these tech people, but uh, I don't know, technology as it's one thing to be like a baron of steel or something, but technology is interesting only because it does represent like the culmination of uh, all, not all, but like most of human like ingenuity is like kind of culminates into technologies, and that's why they're or maybe technology is too broad of a term, but just like into these companies. I guess technology is a defined term, but yeah, the entirety of human ingenuity is put into these technologies, and it involves like chemical, logistical, physics, math. Like it requires all of these highly advanced concepts to then kind of create like in Elon's case, like a rocket ship like that, and like from an engineering perspective, it is like an impressive feat, and it's like good, and I won't say good, but it's cool. It's neat that we can do all that as humans. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that it's whatever. But the larger question of like, okay, is this really the best use of our time and resources and abilities at this time? And what is it? Is this really what we need to be doing with all this? And with technologies, you do kind of have because culturally we have historically embraced technology so well. Like think about um, like the embracing of the cotton gin, and like all these, the wheel, even as the fire as a technology. Like these technologies were accepted because they were extremely useful, and if you didn't accept them, you would have a much greater chance of dying. Like if you're just eating raw meat and gambling every time instead of cooking it, you're probably going to die. Or if you're a wheel, if you're just moving around slowly, it's like technology is so core to society's like function and the cultural like progress that going against technology has never worked for anybody. Like it just doesn't work because it's so central to our culture. But I wonder now if that itself is in question. Like, can we actually prevent progress? Not from a like a literal like min maxer point of view where it's like, well, it actually is more efficient. Can we literally say, I don't care about efficiency? Like, is it possible for humans, at all, just be like, I literally don't care about efficiency. Fuck efficiency. I would rather like have a living and be alive, because that is kind of what we're going to be put up against at some point. I don't think AI is here to take everyone's job and all this other shit. I think most people's jobs could have been done by not even artificial. They could have been done by a bash script 10 years ago. And most people, like, they don't need to exist. Like, I'm not saying that I'm some managerial genius, but I could probably find a way to make a lot of these companies run on a fucking, an Nginx server, and with maybe like 1/100th of the compute that they actually do. You hire the right engineers, you cut the code base down. You could run a lean machine, that'd be just fine. We kind of accept a lot of the bloat because it, gives people occupations and, all that. But now that there is a cultural excuse to get these people out of their jobs, I wonder culturally, will our relationship with technology change? Like, will we become more resistant? And I do think it is, it's generational in some sense, in that, older people have always benefited from technology. So they really have no rational reason to reject technology. But, younger people in my group have many, many rational reasons to be like, I don't want it. I don't care if I don't care if you think it's cool that an AI made this. I don't want to do this. And then you have like the people in my generation cosplaying as boomers, or it's like, well, no, this is good. It's always been this way. I don't know. The historical precedent argument is tough too, only because like things like don't change until like you're right until you're not. It's like, yeah, like technology's always done this. We've always created new jobs, yada, 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 until it doesn't. It's like, we've never done this before. It's like, yeah, we're in our uncharted territory, and we can't like use this whole like, well, it's never like, it's always done this and this. It's like, okay, well, it's going to do that until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you're going to be, oh my God. It's like, well, we can't just assume that because it's done this, it's been this way, you know, in a couple other times, which isn't even really that much of a sample size. Like if we're going to look at like disruptive technologies to the extent of, you know, I guess, global LLMs or whatever, it's like, okay, we have the internet kind of, you know, and you know, that's like maybe one thing that we can somewhat compare, but even that's like not really, you know, able to compare. And then like the steam engine, you can kind of compare that a little bit too, but like all these are, again, are still limited by, you know, they're geographically constrained by many different constraints there. Like there are many constraints that we really don't have in this age, and the speed at which things can change, you know, really only guarantees a certainty of uncertainty, which we really don't know. So I don't think making, you know, hawkish predictions one way or the other is that prudent. So I don't know. Anyway, I was just trying to think more about what motivates a lot of these clowns that do technology. But let me switch gears and knock off some of these haikus. You know, I think I've said this before, but I, you know, as kind of somebody that exists, you know, we exist in this like hyper productive culture where we're very fixated and focused on a concept of productivity and like doing productive things. You know, for growing up, to me, it was always like to be doing something is better than doing nothing. Like productivity is a virtue, and it doesn't, you know, not that as long as you can justify it, but you know, you should be doing something good with your time. Like use your time wisely, and that is kind of just like the crux of productivity. Is like, are you using your time wisely? And I've realized, and I've said before, and this might not be a surprise or anything, but momentum is probably the most important ingredient in being productive, and that is why like people say make your bed. And it's not that, you know, the act of make your bed is, you know, clean room, clean mind. I don't even agree with that either, because many people with very organized thinking had, you know, looks like grenades went off in their office. It's not like you have to have a clean space to think well. You know, that being said, I do advocate for a clean space. I think it's better, but either way, it's not important. But I think like it's a very much a snowball effect. Whereas if you make your bed, you're more likely to take a shower, brush your teeth, and it's like, all right, then you've on a good roll, and you're going to cook breakfast, eat that. Okay, next thing, you know, crush your emails, whatever, then go to the gym. It's like you're going to do one thing right after the other. Whereas if you miss the first thing, it requires a lot more of that, like the, you know, pulling from the bank of willpower. You know, you only have so much willpower. You can't just be, you know, tapping that all the time. And, you know, if you do these small things that don't really require that much willpower, but they can allow you to do the next thing with much less willpower. So it is kind of, it's a very much momentum based argument. Um, but I don't know. I just think it's worth noting again that, where the fuck? Oh, god damn. That momentum is the most important ingredient in productivity. So I guess make your bed. Let's move on to something else here. I'm gonna get to another safe space. Although this whole world is kind of a safe space for me. I'm basically invincible in this world. It's not even, you know. Anyway, let's see here. Um, hmm. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, or wondering, uh, like if we didn't have, like if we didn't have the technologies, and I guess it's kind of hard to say that, like if, you know, imagine a world where we didn't have like medicine, because a lot of the medicine is based off of like all the technologies are linked, right? It's like computer technologies are, you know, hand in hand with medical advances and all that stuff. But I'm just like thinking of, you know, if we didn't have all of these technologies to kind of undo a lot of these problems, like I think we'd then really clearly see how ill suited we are for this environment. Like if you just put a prehistoric human, like on, you know, a human from 5,000 years ago just into society now, you know, that might be dead within a week. Like, you know, forget the diseases or whatever that, again, there's a large argument that a lot of these diseases came about because of civilization, and like us eating fucking bread and just bread, only bread for their own people's entire lives, creates a lot of problems. Because that's how societies ended up. Before hunter gatherers, or after hunter gatherers, we ate a lot of monocrops, so we didn't really get all that. But I just wonder how. I guess how quickly somebody would die, living, like, assumed that disease is out of the question, but like how many other things would just slowly kill them? I don't know, the first thing to go would probably be, I don't know, it'd probably be a psychological damage would probably be the biggest thing that we would lose a fresh human on, as they probably wouldn't be able to psychologically understand, and grasp all of these things that we don't take for granted, but we just kind of accept as a daily fact of life. I think it would be, I don't know, too much to handle. But I do think that thought exercise in itself, just like imagining what a human from however many thousand years ago would, how they would like do in today's society, I think does show how, sure, like how far we've come. That's like one lens to look at it, but then also how how adaptive we are too. That's another positive thing, I suppose. But then also like how problematic many of our habits and behaviors are, like the processed food, all the environmental toxins, and even air quality, all shit like that, like things that we don't even really think about because we're just kind of used to it. But these humans kind of at one point were a well-oiled machine, and we weren't able to just go to a doctor and just get a drug for whatever the problem was. You know, I don't know. I guess that was just more of a hypothetical on, I don't know what progress has done to us, and I don't know. I'll move on to something else here because that was dead end. Let's see. This is totally random, but I am just gonna try to knock off some of these things on my list. Every movie that has like like a horror movie, for example, they'll get stuck in, an abandoned, warehouse of some kind, and it's like, in order to get outside and save my wife from the zombies or something, we have to like bring the electricity back up. It's like, oh, thank God somebody in our posse is like an electrician. Every time that it's like somebody in the main character posse has like some skill, it's always that they're like this secret goodwill hunting genius, and it's like they were totally undervalued at their work. It's like if the person in the posse is like a chef, they were like this undisputed king, like this, they never got the credit they deserve, but they were actually the super genius and they totally understand everything. I'm waiting for a movie that's more realistic where, it's like, oh my God, we need to bring the power back up. Like, oh, thank God you're an electrician. It's like, well, yeah, I'm an electrician, but I like suck at my job and like I hate it. So like, I don't know how the fuck to bring this back up. It's like, good luck, get somebody else. It's like every time it's like this random expert in the movie. They're always like super OP and they like know how to do everything perfectly. I don't have a great example, but I do remember watching some movies where it's like I feel like whenever they have this random expert character in a movie, they're always like totally overpowered, and they're just always way too good at whatever crappy job that they have. Because it's always like it's never like somebody who's super. It's always like some broke ass electrician that is somehow the greatest electrician of all time and can like hack together a battery from two bananas and a piece of sawdust, and it just doesn't make any sense. That like you get these geniuses that are somehow these like lowly, like I make $12 an hour guys in these movies. I guess it would defeat the magic of the movie if it was more realistic and it was just some Zoomer that works part time at Chick-fil-A and doesn't care. But it would be more realistic, and I suppose I guess that's one thing I've kind of recognized about myself is I do value realism in that sense. Not realism in the sense that things should be bad and things are bad, because that's not what I mean by that, but realistic in the sense that things are usually pretty average or neutral. They're usually not, people usually aren't the expert, but they're usually also not the complete fuck up. It's usually life is always some kind of somewhere in the middle. You know, it's like not never as bad as you seem, never as good as you think. And to me, I think that's a healthier way, healthier space to exist in, is kind of the liminal space between, you know, superb and fucked, is kind of a, you know, an average space. It's probably less exciting, maybe. Although I don't know what's exciting about being, you know, the worst, but I don't know. I think it's people tend to mistake that view for like being cynical or pessimistic about something, which I'm not. I just think I value realism. Even like in a game, you know, like Minecraft, you know, I see people that use mods that like overlay blocks and mods that, what if there was a mod where it's a chat bot that I can like explain what I want to do and have a to-do list up here. Like I could probably find some really clever and cool ways to like add new shit, but to me that just kind of defeats the, I'll say the realistic element of whatever, what this game has given me. And it's like the game itself, the mechanics itself are interesting enough. I don't really need to, continue to add on to try and optimize everything to make it, to keep up with advances and, new technologies or whatever. I appreciate the realism of, here are these limited set of mechanics. Here's what you can do, kind of play within that realm, like stick by the rules. Don't, it's like enjoying the game of baseball versus like, what about baseball 2.0? Instead of like a regular ball, we have a regular ball and another. It's like, we stop with this. Like, we've already set the rules. Like, we enjoy the game anyway. We don't want all this extra additional bullshit. I'm kind of a purist in that way. I don't want like, yeah, that might be cool, but I'm not going to spend all my time thinking of, things that maybe or maybe not would add. It's like, I like this. This is an enjoyment. This is not like you know, a job for me where I have to like improve and optimize every little detail. It's like, I enjoy this process, period. I don't want to keep adding shit to it. It's like, people enjoy the game of baseball the way it's played, the way it's been played for 100 years, and the way it's going to be played for another 100 years. We don't want to be adding, a new double bat or something, or you get 5 strikes. Like the whole banana ball thing is like, it just disgusts me because it's just turning it into a fucking circus. And it's like, well, you're getting more people involved with the game. It's like, but I think that's kind of, the exclusivity is a positive thing in my view. If you're bored by watching baseball, then you simply don't appreciate like the degree of like talent and ability that these people have. I hate the word talent, but the abilities that these people have developed, like the skills that they have. If you're bored watching, you like either just haven't, you haven't played, you have no history of playing, you don't really understand why it's so difficult to do what they're doing. But then you can't really like observe and appreciate, the degree of difficulty that they have. You need it to be, pop-ups and music and all this other bullshit that they add to it to like make it fun in this banana ball crap. Then you're just you're not a fan of baseball. Go find something else that you enjoy. Don't like, pretend to enjoy it or call it the same game. I guess they call it banana ball, so it's not really the same thing, but it still bothers me that it's like I don't know, they're trying to like play it off as baseball. They're showing on ESPN and stuff like that. That's not, this isn't baseball. This is I don't know, some TikTok thing. It's not they're trying all these new rules and all this other bullshit. It's like, we've established the rules. The game is pretty level and fair as it is. It's like, well, it's one thing to change rules to make it, more fair or this or that. Like, they tweak the balls and they kind of, they tweak the mound over the course of, 200 years. But by and large, the game itself is still fun. The rules, the game is established and fun the way it is. We don't have to keep adding shit and complicating it, because somebody gets bored with the way the rules are. It's like, if you're bored by it, then don't do it. Do something else. Don't like, just because you're bored with it doesn't mean everyone else hates it and is bored too. It's like, no, many people enjoy the game exactly the way it is. They don't want to keep fucking with stuff. Just leave it alone. And if you don't enjoy it, then let people enjoy it and go enjoy something else. It's like, you don't have to, we don't have to include everybody who doesn't enjoy this. It's like, it's fine. I think the exclusivity of it is, a positive thing in some ways. So anyway, oh fuck, whatever. Get me out of this. Let's see. Got off track. Let's see. Let me go back to my haikus here. Yeah, this was kind of this wasn't really a thought. This was just a kind of I'll say like a mantra that I don't repeat to myself often, but it is kind of a mantra that I find underlies a lot of my opinions. Um, but the mantra is this: that the world is a beautiful place, but there is always work to be done. So it's not that I think like the world is a beautiful place. That first sentence is very important because we're establishing that like the world is beautiful and there are many things to be, happy about and enjoy. Like it's not that we need to be upset and mad that things aren't optimized or whatever the fuck. Like the world's a beautiful place. The second half being, but there's always work to be done, which I think is fair. It's like yes, there's always work to be done. There's always something, not optimized or something, inefficient or unjust or whatever. Like that's a constant, yes. But again, don't forget the first part, which is the world is beautiful. And I think that the world is beautiful coming first is important and intentional. It's not that there's always work to be done in a beautiful world. It's like, no, the world is a beautiful place, period. But there's always work to be done. I think those two in that order are it's a very, is a simple, nice, and true to me mantra that I think, um, again, kind of underlies a fair amount of my philosophies. Because I think it is, if you are kind of in a headspace of engineering and optimizing and improving things, it is sometimes difficult to see the beauty and what you're able to accomplish because you're so worried about the errors and the potential disruptors of whatever system you've designed. It's like all this stuff, it's fine as someone designing a improvement or a system of some kind, but don't forget that step one, the world is a beautiful place. Like you are, this is a a gift in some way or however you want to look at it. But no matter what, the world is a beautiful place. Start with that, but there's always work to be done, and it's like that's fine. You can always spend the time optimizing, enjoying, engineering, doing whatever. But I think it'd be foolish to forget that the first step is the world is a beautiful place. Um, yeah, let's see here. This is another funny slash interesting thought. Was that like fate as a concept? So fate being like, I'm viewing like, God fate here, like existential universe fate here. Fate exists as an irony maximizer. So it's not that like fate, always prefers justice. I think fate prefers justice if it's ironic. Fate is kind of an irony maximizer. I'm not saying that it is, but I think it's funny to think of fate in that way, where it's the most just thing won't necessarily always happen, but the most ironic thing might. Because there is some, I don't know. There's irony with all of our problems. I mean, like for one, like our food killing us or something, or the abundance of food killing us. It is so ironic to me that like we die because, or Western people die because they eat too much, whereas half the world is starving to death. Like that to me is like just pure irony. And same with like all these technologies we've invented to like abstract us further away from, like going outside and, doing stuff ourselves, is then now kind of made us worse, and it's like ruined many people's lives. And it's just, and it's not that that's a good thing or that like it's justice or something. I just think it's ironic, and I think fate. I don't know. It's possible to view happenings of fate as a just as a source of irony maxing, where they're just trying to make things as ironic as possible. And if there is a God, he's a comedian. He's funny, and he thinks it's funny when these intelligent monkeys do all this shit to like optimize everything, and then kind of end up right back where they started with like dealing with the same fucking problems that we've had for God knows how long. It's like we're not all this progress we claim to have made. It's almost, you can almost look back and kind of question whether or not you've made any progress at all, which I think is kind of the crux of the irony there. I think it's funny to view fate as an irony, as a maximization of whatever is most ironic. Anyway, let's see. Do I have one more small thing? This was, I'm stealing this from somewhere. I don't know where, but this was a quip about LLMs. It was generate, hallucinate, litigate, and repeat. So I do notice that like all of, especially like our justice system, again, I guess speaking of the irony of how far it is behind, Um, our justice system is just simply just not suited, and it wasn't, again, like they didn't write the Constitution with iPads in mind. So like having to do this, in retrospect, is kind of funny thinking about how, uh, how like universal and important our concepts of justice are, where it's now like we don't even really know what justice is because justice didn't account for a 5.3 gigahertz processor. It's like justice didn't really know what the fuck that was, or online porn. It just didn't have that idea in mind when our ruminations and writings on justice were made. So now we're kind of doing all that in hindsight, but uh, I don't know. I guess there is irony to be seen there, but uh, anyway, I'll wrap it up there for this time. Thanks for watching. Hoping to get back into the groove of these pretty soon. Do one every couple days or a couple times a week. But anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one.